guy.
He's back. Big Bubba Bill Clinton, as well as Hillary Clinton, were talking with a panel about the Epstein files and their involvement in it and the photos and what they all mean, giving their perspective on things. While not being formally accused of wrongdoing, they were there to try and explain their side, so they'd, spaghetti out a bunch of lore here, and that was really it. And not a whole lot's come from it outside of, clips, of, Hillary Clinton getting upset during it, and Bill Clinton in particular, who I really want to yap about, because he was giddy. He was like Howard Lutnick anytime Epstein's name gets brought up. He couldn't stop laughing and smiling, throughout the whole thing. And there's one particular moment that we went over on stream that I have just got to show you, because it is certified wackiness. This is actual bozo clown level insanity here. He goes through the Epstein files and some of the photos there he's scrapbooking. Now, apparently one of them was about a painting of him in a dress or something that he was giggling about. I don't know if that's confirmed or not, but that's the speculation based off of what you can kind of see when he's turning one of the pages. But it is weird. And to me, it showcases just how little they actually give a fuck about the Epstein files. They treat it like a joke.
What?
Bill Clinton treating it like a joke. The entire fucking administration, Howard Lutnick in particular, actually busts a gut every time Epstein's name gets brought up. The powerful people know they're going to get away with it. And I really think this whole hearing is just a farce. I think this is just a little song and dance for the plebeians to enjoy. Look, we're doing something about Epstein files. Look, here's the Clintons. No, we're not actually accusing them of doing anything wrong, but we're pretending that we might. Even though the administration has reiterated multiple times to just drop it, move on, and that there probably won't be any real
Hey, remember when I said that the people that are heavily invested in this, both sides the fuck out of it anyway? Remember when I said that, guys?
Investigations henceforth, and Perjury Patel likes to keep lying about it out the wazoo till his whole anus falls out, till he full-blown prolapses on his lies. So I don't have a whole lot of faith in this, a committee here that was asking the Clintons questions. I think it's just a sham. I would love if they really did investigate them and everyone in the Epstein files, but I don't think that's coming, and based off of Bill Clinton's attitude here, I think they're also pretty confident that nothing like that's on the horizon anytime soon. Do you see the Did you see the clip of Bill Clinton smiling while looking at old Epstein photos while his lawyer was trying to take them away? Oh my god, yeah.
And for the record, what is happening in this photo?
He's smiling at me. Looks like he's talking to me.
Can you describe the circumstances surrounding this photo?
Are you asking if he recalls?
I do not. I have no idea.
You appear to be comfortable with Mr. Epstein in this photo. What do you disagree with?
I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable here. I'm not happy, but I'm comfortable. Let me see it.
Damn, they don't have the whole thing. So in the whole thing going up to this, he looked at it, he started smiling, his lawyer took it away, and he goes over with a big smile on his face. He's like, give me it, give me it, give me it. And then he reminisces.
Jesus.
They're cutting out all the bits. It's so shameless. Just look at the way he follows it. It's like a dog when you take their toy and they're ready to play fetch. It's unbelievable.
Maybe he was just reading it?
Hey, that's enough, Bill. No, wait. Stop. I was having fun. You wouldn't believe the story behind this one.
Epic.
Mr. President, we have about 5 minutes remaining in the majority's first hour, so I just want to ask you some questions related to
Oh, wait, are you?
Crazy.
Oh, his internet
It's
is going to
crazy.
Epstein and Miss Maxwell.
Unreal. Bill being nostalgic is crazy. I know, man.
Being nostalgic.
And his lawyer is like, okay, this, come on. That's enough. Those were the days, off face, yeah. Can I get a copy of that? The way he starts pointing at it actually makes me feel like he's asking for, can I check out some more of these? Okay. He's having so much fun. I think this is the happiest Bill Clinton has looked since he got the fucking Blowjoptimus Prime from Monica Lewinsky. This guy is glistening. He is like radiant with glee going through these Epstein files. And I've seen some weird defense of this where people are claiming that the reason he's acting that way is because he's taken aback by the comical attempt to pin bad stuff on him with the Epstein files here. So he's not taking it seriously because they've done such a poor...
Yeah, seriously, that's way less likely than he's just laughing and reminiscing about how much he loves to be a pedophile, knowing that this entire thing is being recorded regardless, right? But, okay.
job. It's actually a galaxy brain chess maneuver from Bill Clinton here to show that he's not guilty. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? This makes him look significantly more guilty, at least to me it does. And I imagine this probably is pretty poorly put together. I imagine they haphazardly threw this committee together without any real teeth or any real drive for justice, probably just as a way of trying to, like, appease the public, showing that there is movement on this front, since most sane, sensible people aren't dropping this. But what Bill Clinton's doing here doesn't show like he's not guilty. It shows that he doesn't take this seriously as if it's a big deal, when it is.
How long
the
was his
administration
deposition?
keeps trying to hammer home the point that you shouldn't care about this and that it's not a big deal and we need to move on, which I think is the most unhinged shit imaginable, because this deals with the largest sex trafficking operation in this country's history.
Really?
Like the abuse,
okay.
the
I know,
trafficking,
I guess some
the
people do.
potential murder, of children
Potential murder?
at the hands
Wait, are
of
we
Epstein
murdering
and
kids
Epstein's
now?
clients, and nobody has been arrested outside of Maxwell, who again gets to just go to a fucking summer camp instead of a prison because of this administration. Like, it's absurd. You should care about this. And then you have people like Bill Clinton here, who in front of this committee is now just giggling about it and looks like he can't wait to keep reminiscing going through these files. He's probably excited to get back in that chair to look at more photos. And even in the slightest, like, literal tiniest iota of a chance that Bill Clinton isn't guilty of any wrongdoing, the behavior that he's showcasing here, I think, is still completely unacceptable because of the severity of this case. This is...
Bruh, it's a deposition. Like, it's probably like a fucking 9-hour deposition. What do you think he's gonna sit there and, like, sit up straight and be ultra super formal and everything the entire fucking time? Like, Jesus Christ, bro. I don't actually know how long his deposition is. My guess is it was hours and hours long.
is a child sex trafficking operation that went on for so many years, implicating some of the most powerful people on the fucking planet, and nobody's taking it seriously in the government here. Like, it's unbelievable. And Bill Clinton can't stop laughing about it. And people in the administration can't stop laughing about it. It's just crazy to me. And I don't know how anyone could watch this and defend it. Now, throughout the deposition, both Bill and Hillary maintained that they didn't do anything wrong, there was nothing sexual or anything like that ever happened. When Bill was pressed about some of the photos in the files,
Quick Google search said more than 6 hours.
like him and Maxwell in a pool
4 hours.
with an unidentified woman, he said, you know, that was actually at a hotel, nothing sexual, nothing freaky, nothing weird, and I imagine that's where the investigation stops. I have no confidence, no faith in anyone actually pursuing real justice against the evil co-conspirators, the fucking heinous, vile monsters, the clients of Jeffrey Epstein. Like, I don't believe anyone's actually going to seriously try and get anyone thrown in the slammer for it. I really do think, like, this committee, this little hearing here, is just a performance. See, we asked Bill Clinton the hard-hitting questions, and then he said, that's a bunch of fiddlesticks, and we said, well, if Bill says so, we did all we could. Hands are tied. Because that's kind of been the whole attitude about it. That, and making a mockery of it. A joke out of the Epstein files. You know, Bill Clinton laughing about it, administration constantly giggling about it. You know, they're slapping their knee every time Epstein's name is brought up. It's fucking scary. It's so out of control, man. But anyway, I had to yap about this Bill Clinton clip in particular. There's actually a few moments like this throughout the whole thing, but that one's the most egregious, so that was the one that I wanted to show. That's the one I think most people have probably seen by now, too, because it's so ridiculous. But there are quite a few moments like that throughout there. They just don't last as long as this one did. He really got lost in his happy thoughts, reminiscing in his Epstein days.
Also, a little scary. You guys know why Charlie has that opinion about the fucking video that he saw, right? Did anybody see why? the loading of like why he was smiling and what was going on and the snatched it from his hands. He was fed a tweet on Twitter. That's what he was watching. So this whole opinion probably came because a tweet was delivered to him with a 20-second clip from the deposition, and then the description was he smiles as his lawyer snatches away the files from his hand or whatever. Pretty fucked. Pretty not good.
His glory days. Anyway, though, that's really about it. It's fucking sick stuff, man. Absolutely twisted. Alright, see ya.
Who's this guy?
Look, you fat fuck Trump, if you listen to this, you listen good, because what I'm getting ready to say is what a lot of people in this country speak for, who I speak for. And I speak for a lot of fucking people. You hear me, you fat asshole?
Jesus.
This is what we believe. You're right. I got Trump derangement syndrome. I hate the motherfucker. And you know what?
True.
I don't want to get rid of it. I don't want to get better. I want to get worse. I want to hate him more. I pray to God in heaven, God reign the righteous reign of Trump derangement syndrome. Pray for me, Lord. I'm your vessel on this earth. Pray for the people that listen to this. We want more. We want to hate the son of a bitch so much that we can't see straight. Look, you fat fuck Trump, if you listen.
Okay.
There's a common disclaimer in finance. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. You'll usually find it buried in the fine print of an investment pitch, a legal shield for fund managers when things don't go according to plan. But if this disclaimer applied to nations, the United Kingdom would be the ultimate test case. For centuries, Britain didn't just punch above its weight, it defined the global weight class. As the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, the UK was once the workshop of the world, producing nearly 1/3 of all global manufactured goods by 1870. A century ago, it sat at the heart of the largest empire in history, ruling over 26% of the Earth's land area and nearly a quarter of its population. To any observer in the 19th or early 20th century, Britain's prosperity seemed like a permanent law of nature. Yet today in 2026, the narrative has shifted from global dominance to a productivity puzzle and a stagnation trap. The British disease is back, and this time it's been caused by a series of what we might call compounding errors. While the empire dissolved after 2 world wars, Britain remained an unusually successful nation for much of the late 20th century, seen as an economy that had firmly found its footing. But since the global financial crisis of 2008, that footing has slipped. While the United States has managed to pull away significantly since the crash, the UK has instead become a masterclass in self-inflicted stagnation. The data tells a stark story of divergence. Between 2008 and 2023, the US economy grew by a staggering 87%, while the EU managed just 13.5%.
Damn.
The United Kingdom saw a similarly sluggish 15.4% rise. During this same period, Japan has struggled with a shrinking workforce, and even China, once the world's most reliable growth engine, has seen its momentum cool as it grapples with a massive real estate crisis and an aging population. Unfortunately, many of the UK's struggles feel self-inflicted. Over the last decade, we've seen a steady drumbeat of prime ministerial churn, policy U-turns, and car production that's fallen to its lowest level since 1956. Britain is currently the only G7 nation where the quantity of goods exports is lower today than it was in 2016. The big problems are well known: stagnant growth, feeble productivity, some of the highest industrial energy prices in the world, and the lingering toxin of Brexit. These problems are not just a matter of misfortune. They're the result of compounding errors, from an uncertain business environment to a tax system that punishes ambition. Let's dig into the data to see if the UK really is the sick man of the West, or if a bit of statistical pessimism is hiding a much healthier reality. First up, we need to talk about why the productivity puzzle everyone keeps mentioning isn't really a puzzle at all. If you spend enough time reading financial news, you'll run into the productivity puzzle. It's a term economists use to describe the stark slowdown in the amount of value the average British worker produces for every hour they work. Before the global financial crisis, the UK's productivity...
Didn't know this dude was this far gone. The Keith Edwards guy. Listen, it's always, I'm sorry, you just can't. They're sock anything, sock dem sock whatever, and then probably progressive. They're always gonna fucking side with the tankies or the crazies. That's just how it goes.
Activity was on a solid trajectory, but since then it's hit a wall. Today, the average British worker is about 20% less productive than their counterpart in the United States. The economist Tej Parikh argues that there's no puzzle here at all. He says that we know exactly what the problem is. About a third of Britain's productivity slowdown is caused by a simple lack of capital per worker. In plain English, we haven't been buying enough of the tools, machines, and software needed to make workers efficient. British workers have to make do with a third less capital than their counterparts in higher productivity peer countries. Britain has spent decades underinvesting in everything from research and development to basic infrastructure. Parikh pointed out in a recent FT article that every French city with a population greater than 150,000 people has a mass transit system in place. In Britain, there are 30 towns and cities that large that simply go without. When people can't get back and forth to work because the buses don't run, the effective size of our most productive city shrinks. If you want to know where the remaining growth has gone, you have to look at things like the effects of Brexit on the business environment and at red tape. Britain has created a planning system so complex that reopening a tiny 3.3-mile train line near Bristol required 79,187 pages of planning documents generated over a 16-year period.
Jesus.
All of this was done without any tracks being laid. Apparently, if you printed those documents out, the paperwork would stretch for 14.6 miles, which is nearly 5 times longer than the actual planned railway. We also need to look at the tax complexity, which created a world in which a doctor has to work a 61-hour week just to earn an extra £1. And we'll look at the Bermuda Triangle of talent that is sucking the ambition out of the UK's smartest graduates. But first, let me tell you about this week's video sponsor,
Whoa.
Tailor Store, who I've been getting all of my new shirts from over the last year. Tailor Store make custom clothes designed for your body, so everything you buy from them fits perfectly. And to me, that makes a big difference. All you do is enter a few details on their website, they calculate a size for you, and then make a shirt that fits you perfectly. If it's not perfect the first time, they'll remake it for free.
Damn.
You get to design your own shirt if that's what you want, or you can pick one of their designs. Their online tool lets you specify everything: color, shapes, cuffs, fabrics, the type of buttons, and even monograms. This means that your style really shows through. This shirt is their Atlas blue shirt with cutaway classic collar, French cuffs, no pocket, and mother-of-pearl buttons. It's their new non-iron shirt. It stays wrinkle-free from wash to wear, giving you a polished look throughout the day. Tailor Store have helped over 300,000 customers since their company was founded in 2003, and they ship fast, so that even though your shirts are made to measure, you won't be waiting around for them. Unlike traditional retail, nothing is produced in advance. Clothes are only made after an order is placed, which means that there's no piles of unsold stock, and thus there's far less waste. Because they own their own production facilities, they've removed all of the unnecessary middle layers that usually push prices up. If you want a more practical, smarter way to shop for clothes that fit you perfectly, click the link in the description. Tailor Store is offering my viewers 25% off their full order if they use the link and discount code below. It's a great way to get clothes made properly only when they're needed and at a price that actually makes sense. A key factor that's killed productivity and economic growth in Britain has been the cliff edges built into the tax system. We often hear politicians talk about the importance of a nation's work ethic, But the UK has structured a tax system that actively discourages people from doing additional work. UK tax expert Dan Needle gives the example on his website of a consultant anaesthesiologist who earns just under £100,000 a year, a typical salary for a junior consultant. Because this doctor has young children, he receives 15 hours of free childcare allowance from the government. Without the subsidy, this would cost him around £20,000 a year. If he agrees to work extra hours to help clear a hospital backlog and his income goes above that £100,000 mark, his marginal tax rate explodes to 62%.
Holy cliff.
On top of that, his eligibility for free childcare vanishes. The math is so brutal that he would have to effectively work an extra 21 hours a week just to earn an additional £1 of take-home pay. Unsurprisingly, many doctors and skilled professionals just choose to stay home. This chart from the FT shows how there's currently around 400,000 people.
If you're looking for the rested gear, the best spot is the part of loading bay where you zip up to the medical area and the blue-green breachable things. What are the blue-green breachable things?
In the UK, bunching their earnings just below the £50,000 and £100,000 thresholds, specifically to avoid these tax traps, where higher income would translate to lower take-home pay. Dan Needle's website, Tax Policy Associates, gives a great breakdown of the tax mistakes that help to lower British productivity. While the tax system is pushing people out of the workforce at the top, our post-Brexit migration policy has been reshuffling the deck at the bottom. Since the Brexit referendum, the mix of workers arriving in the UK has undergone a massive shift. We've replaced a flexible pool of EU migrants who could flow back and forth at will between the UK and their home countries in response to economic demand with a much more rigid system of less flexible workers. After the government dropped certain visa requirements in the wake of Brexit, the country experienced its largest and fastest expansion in low-skilled migration in history. Many of these new arrivals are on visas tied to specific, often lower-paid sectors like social care. This has created a labour market that's far less responsive to the economy's needs. The UK has chronic shortages in some sectors while being swamped with labour in others. This combination of a rigid workforce and a punitive tax code is hitting the next generation the hardest. There used to be
So the UK listen to the lefties and tax rich people more, so rich people work less to be poor. No. The issue is sometimes if you have benefits that you're giving to people, I think the benefits should like slope off. You don't ever want to have like a brutal like a benefits or welfare cliff where it's like if you earn $99,999, you get $1,500 in benefits, but if you earn $100,000, you lose all of it. Like brutal cliffs like that will make it so that whereas like for normally, like for progressive taxation systems, right? Well, if you earn a little bit more, you get paid a little bit more tax on the next dollar, whatever. These things are actually things that would probably hardcore disincentivize like work where it would it's just not a good, you just don't want to have to make it so like if you work 1 hour, now you have to work 20 more just to earn another dollar basically. The iron crate things in the tunnels. Oh, okay.
the idea that a degree from a British university was a golden ticket to higher earnings, but now the graduate premium in the UK has collapsed. In 1999, graduates earned 80% more than non-graduates did. Today, that gap has shrunk to just 45%. This has happened right as the cost of education has rocketed.
These things seem super easy to fix, so why not fix them? I don't even know what you could possibly be talking about fixing, unless you're talking about all of the goddamn brown fucking illegal immigrants that are going into the goddamn country and ruining the culture and everything else about the country, okay? That's the only problem that every country on the planet has is mass migration, jihadist invasion, okay? But, yeah, in order to actually address or fix any of these issues, you would have to have, like, an actual conversation about, like, Jesus Christ, me and Constantine didn't get anywhere close to tax policy. I don't even think I wouldn't even know any British tax policy to argue with them, but that was like the most obvious thing that was never going to be touched because most of these people wouldn't be able to explain how like the basics of taxation. like that's it, yeah.
Good. John Byrne Murdoch wrote a great piece on this last month. He points out that while there are more graduates today than in the 1990s, the problem of the declining wage premium isn't driven by there being too many graduates. As in the United States, where the percentage of university graduates is about the same as it is in the UK, the graduate earnings premium actually rose to 92% over the same period. And to make it worse, according to OECD data, British graduates are more skilled in terms of literacy, numeracy, and adaptive problem solving than their higher earning American counterparts. The problem is that the UK economy just isn't producing enough professional.
This is also like, I don't even know how you would have a conversation about this, because like this is hitting on probably one of the most unpopular talking points of all time. So I don't usually take up this talking point because generally the people bringing it up are retards that are just they're just stupid and they just want to like suck off fucking wealthy people or whatever. But the idea that like, you know, that like Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and these guys actually create a lot of jobs in the United States, that is true. That is very true. And if you're in a very low capital environment where people just aren't investing much in your economy, like remember, your productivity as a worker is the skills that you have combined with the capital that you can work, right? You take the best programmer in the world and you... Okay. If you take the best programmer in the world and you put them in front of like a fucking abacus and then like a circuit board or something, like they're not going to be able to do anything because you're not... Their talents... There's no gain in productivity there, right? Their talents are wasted. So I don't know if there's just no incentive for people to invest in the British economy or if people just don't keep their money there, or I don't know. I have heard this complaint before, and just in listening and vibing, I do get the impression that sometimes London feels like a place you go to retire, which I feel like it shouldn't be. But I'm super vibing that out. But like you can go to San Francisco or LA or New York City, you can go there with a lot of money and you can invest in businesses and do a lot of stuff to work and do stuff. But for some reason, London feels a little bit more like it attracts people who are like done working and they're just going to turn it into like a retirement place. Although, I mean, like, there is still, like, a lot of finance and shit, I guess, that exists in London, but I don't know. I don't even know how big of an issue that is compared to anything else.
Highly paid roles suitable for a university graduate.
Come down here?
John Byrne Murdoch shows that since the 1990s, the share of managerial and professional jobs in the United States economy rose from 28 to 39%. In Germany, they rose from 19 to 30%, and in the Netherlands, from 34 to 45% since 2005. The UK, on the other hand, has seen just a 6 percentage point rise from 27 to 33% since 1991. In the same way that Greek and Italian graduates struggled in the 1990s and 2000s, British graduates are struggling today. The declining graduate earnings premium is more of a comment on the country's stagnant economy than its higher education system. The steady increase in minimum wage in the UK has squeezed the earnings premium from the lower end too. If you look at these two charts, you can see that British graduates earn way less than graduates do in other comparable countries, and that British workers with less than a high school...
Jesus. Man, UK, land of the retards, making it big. I'm just kidding. Jesus.
Education earn way more than similar workers in other comparable countries. By narrowing the gap between the floor and the ceiling, we've created an economy where the financial incentive to spend 3 years studying for a degree is slowly evaporating. While many suggest that the simple solution is to tax the rich, the data shows that the UK already leans on high earners more than most.
Jesus. Jesus. Okay.
Middle to high income households
Net income from the state, all individual. Oh, okay. Wait. Okay.
contribute an unusually large share of the UK's total tax.
What do other
take.
countries look like?
While the average British worker pays relatively little by international standards, the tax burden in the UK rises more steeply with income than almost anywhere else. Specifically, the cliff edges mentioned earlier, can lead to marginal tax rates exceeding 60% for those earning between £100,000 and £125,000 as the personal allowance is withdrawn. When you combine those cliff edges with the withdrawal of benefits, the state is effectively testing the limits of how much it can squeeze its highest contributors before they simply leave. We're already seeing the results. Office for National Statistics data shows net emigration of British people has averaged about 100,000 annually since 2021. Other nations are now proactively competing to attract Britain's highest skilled and wealthiest individuals.
If there's one thing I can't stand, it's emigrants. Rat emigrants emigrating, going over there, having sex with their women, taking their money and skills, emigrants.
This reached a somewhat comical peak in the news this week. As the war in the Middle East intensified, the government began coordinating evacuations for British citizens living in Dubai and the UAE, many of whom had moved there specifically to escape the UK's tax regime. Reports emerged that many of these expats were extremely hesitant to sign the evacuation paperwork for fear of being taxed in the UK. It's a revealing look at the current state of affairs when a worker views an Iranian missile and an HMRC self-assessment form as roughly equivalent threats to their well-being. While the tax system discourages doctors from picking up extra shifts, a more structural rot is taking hold at the other end of the age spectrum. A significant cohort of young Britons now finds the world of work entirely out of reach. In March 2026, official data shows that nearly 1 million young people in the UK are currently what the government describes as NEETs, which stands for neither in education, employment nor training. Youth unemployment in the UK has climbed to 16.1%, surpassing the EU average for the first time since the turn of the millennium. The headline unemployment figure tells only half of the story. Most of these young people, about 57%, are classed as economically inactive, meaning that they've stopped looking for work altogether. Most alarming of all is the fact that 60% of current NEETs have never had a job at any point in their lives, the highest figure since records began. We're witnessing the lost million, a generation of young people who seems to be falling through the cracks of the social and economic map before they've managed to set foot on it. It's hard to know how employable this group will ever be, even if the British economy picks up again. Economists often talk about the scarring effect of youth unemployment, where those who spend their early 20s outside the workforce often face permanently lower lifetime earnings and a much higher risk of welfare dependency as they age. By failing to integrate this million-strong cohort, the UK is essentially mothballing its own future potential. A major driver of this inactivity seems to be a youth mental health crisis, which seems to be particularly acute in the UK and is...
Bruh, 20%? The share of UK young adults reporting a disability. Does this have to do with like what they consider disabilities? Like maybe in the US it's not a disability to be depressed, but in the UK it is? Or
possibly driven by the slow economy. The share of 16 to 24-year-olds in the UK claiming a health problem that reduces their ability to carry out day-to-day activities has tripled, rising from 7% in 2008 to 21% today. While rates of reported mental distress amongst the youth are rising globally, few countries other than Britain have seen this translate into such a sustained rise in economic inactivity. For those tempted to dismiss this as a simple quest for easy welfare money, that argument is undermined by the fact that 44% of economically inactive young people in the UK are not claiming any welfare benefits whatsoever. We seem to be seeing the result of specific compounding errors. First, the high UK minimum wage, which has priced inexperienced workers out of the market. In sectors like hospitality
what is the minimum
and retail,
wage in the UK?
The traditional entry points for the young, hiring has become prohibitively expensive for many small businesses. At the same time, the education to work pipeline has broken down. Worst of all, since the pandemic, chronic school absence in the UK has exploded. The number of pupils missing at least one day every 2 weeks has doubled, and 1 in every 25 pupils is now absent from school at least half of the time. This level of disengagement is extremely worrying. You can't analyse the British economy without addressing the housing market. For decades, the UK has essentially operated as a property market with a country attached. While the American public is famous for its engagement with the stock market, with approximately 62% of American adults owning shares, only about 26% of Britons have any exposure to the markets outside of their workplace pensions. Instead, the British have poured the vast majority of their collective wealth into real estate as an investment.
Damn.
Today, net property wealth accounts for about 40% of total household wealth in the UK, while financial investments make up just 14%. The country serves as a warning to other advanced economies of what happens when a nation overemphasizes real estate as its primary investment vehicle. The result is a stagnant, immobile economy by design. Governments are incentivized to choose policies that push house prices higher and higher, as no government would be re-elected if they presided over a property crash.
True.
Older generations sit on massive untaxed capital gains in appreciated property,
True.
while the young can't afford to move to productive cities because they simply can't afford the entry fee. As of early 2026, UK housing affordability remains stretched, with average home prices in England sitting near 8 times median annual earnings, nearly double the historical average of the late 20th century. Despite recurring government promises to build 1.5 million new homes, the reality has been a lesson in the power of NIMBYism and planning red tape. Local consultations and environmental hurdles have turned simple bricklaying into decades-long legal battles. In London, the situation is particularly acute. House building has effectively collapsed, with new starts reaching their lowest level since the Second World War. When property is viewed as an investment asset that has to go up year after year in order to keep voters happy, you eventually reach a point where it's so unaffordable to the young that they're forced to move abroad, where the cost of living is more in line with their incomes. Compounding the cost of living is the cost of simply keeping the lights on. As the economist Martin Wolf argues, the British government has turned the country into a global outlier on energy policy. While British policymakers might believe that they're setting a green example for the rest of the world, Wolf points out that the UK only accounts for less than 1% of global CO2 emissions. So even if they cut emissions to zero, it just wouldn't move the needle. By maintaining industrial electricity prices that are among the highest in the G7, often 50% higher than in Germany and 4 times the cost in the United States, the UK is not saving the planet. Instead, it's mostly just exporting its emissions to the third world. The country shuts down domestic manufacturing only to buy finished goods back from nations with far laxer environmental standards. It's a hollow victory that looks good on a carbon spreadsheet, but erodes the industrial base and possibly has a much harsher environmental impact too. Other nations are watching this green leadership and possibly concluding that it's not worth the cost. Then there's the triple lock. Since 2011, this policy has guaranteed that the state pension rises by the highest of inflation, average earnings, or 2.5%. For 15 years, successive leaders have ignored the looming fiscal cliff that this creates, fearing the political fallout from the country's most reliable voting
Oh, damn. Asmongold left Mythic Talent. Or they dropped him or something, right?
bloc. 15 years, successive leaders guaranteed that the state pension rises by the highest of inflation, average earnings, or 2.5%. For 15 years, successive leaders have ignored the looming fiscal cliff that this creates, fearing the political fallout from the country's most reliable voting bloc. Like high house prices, the triple lock functions as a massive transfer of wealth from the young to the old. Median wealth for pensioner couples now exceeds £600,000, while a single parent under 35 has a median net worth of less than £30,000. By prioritising the silver vote over economic reality, the state is taxing the working age population to the hilt to support a demographic that is, in many cases, significantly wealthier than the people paying for it. The frustration for many observers is that easy wins are consistently ignored in favour of political safety. The government could have implemented permanent accelerated depreciation for technology investments to jumpstart productivity. It could have made a concerted effort to attract disenchanted researchers from the United States and elsewhere, a literal brain gain. Instead, the US has sidestepped the difficult decisions like unpicking the triple lock or genuinely gutting the planning system and settled for a bunker economy, safe for those already inside, but disastrous for those on the outside looking in. When an economy stops growing, politics stops being about how do we get ahead and starts being about who's taking my slice of the pie. Britain has entered a zero-sum era where every gain for one group is perceived as a direct loss for another. This is most visible in the generational divide. Because the economic pie isn't getting any larger, the elderly protect their property values and pensions with a ferocity that effectively locks the young out of the future. As The Economist recently argued, Britain's stagnating economy has brought back a bitter form of class politics to the UK. The haves, largely older asset-rich homeowners, prioritise the protection of asset values. Meanwhile, the have-nots, the young and the working class, find themselves priced out of housing and squeezed by the highest energy costs in the G7. Historically, Britain's working class tended to vote Labour, while middle and upper class voters supported the Tories. This dynamic broke down in the 2010s, particularly after the Brexit referendum, as cultural issues rose in salience. Age and education replaced class as the key demographic dividers. According to The Economist, Reform and the Green Party have made significant gains amongst voters who don't own their homes. The college-educated and female members of this group have moved towards eco-populism, so the Green Party, while working class and male renters in social housing have increasingly switched to nationalist populism, so Reform. These movements don't offer viable structural solutions to the productivity problem, but they do provide a powerful vent for national anger. Nigel Farage, the leader of the Reform Party, is perhaps the most visible face of this trend. While he frames himself as a champion of the squeezed middle, it's worth remembering that he was also the primary architect of Brexit, the very event that many economists point to as the single greatest self-inflicted wound to British growth in recent history. The data around the damage done by Brexit is hard to ignore. By March 2026, the Brexit dividend remains invisible. Instead, the country is left with an economy that's roughly 5 to 6% smaller than it would have been had it stayed in the EU. Economists have calculated that the business uncertainty surrounding the exit and the eventual friction it introduced to trade caused a significant dip in business activity.
Wait, what did you say?
On dam, like on the buses?
Yep.
That the UK has never truly recovered from. Since the 2016 vote, UK business investment has essentially flatlined, while it had grown by nearly 30% in the 5 years prior. Furthermore, trade intensity, the total value of imports and exports as a share of GDP, is down by about 15%. It turns out that starting a fight with your most important trade partners is maybe not a winning strategy. This stagnation breeds a specific kind of pessimism. When hard work and education no longer feel like paths to a better life, the most ambitious individuals stop trying to fix the system from within. This is the ultimate compounding error, a country that makes it so difficult for its most productive citizens to thrive that they eventually decide to take their talents elsewhere. A recent YouGov survey showed that 79% of the British public think that the economy is unhealthy, and 3/4 believe that it will be even worse in a year. The British disease of the 2020s isn't a lack of ideas or a lack of skill, it's a policy-induced paralysis. The solution isn't a puzzle, it's a hard choice that politicians don't want to make. It involves unpicking the tax traps, gutting the planning system, and making the difficult decision to stop prioritising the bunker economy over the next generation. Britain has spent over a decade proving how easy it is to dismantle a successful economy through a series of compounding errors. The question going forward is whether the country can finally find the courage to start putting it back together. If you found this video interesting, you should watch my video on whether the rich are really leaving Britain next. Don't forget to check out our sponsor Taylor Store using the link in the description. Have a great day and see you in the next video.
Wow.
Bye.
Bye.
Henley and Park.
Wow. Can you link? I want to send to my friend. It's what's this guy's name? Is it Patrick O'Leary? Am I making that up? No, I'm sorry, Patrick Boyle. Did you see Trump on Air Force One? Yeah, me and him ride it together all the time. Just like we ride your mom. Well, is there any other interesting stuff that I need to be watching? Or am I good for today? It's my Saturday. I'm ready to sleep. I don't need this shit anymore.
I'll see you later.
Be careful. I love you.
I've seen.
Mr. President, did the United States bomb a girls' elementary school in southern Iran on the first day of the war and kill 175 people?
In my opinion, based on what I've seen, that was done by Iran.
Is that true, Mr. Hegseth? It was Iran who did that?
We're certainly investigating.
Still investigating.
But the only side that targets civilians is Iran.
We think it was done. We think it was done by Iran. Because they're very inaccurate, as you know, with their munitions. They have no accuracy whatsoever. It was done by Iran.
Mr. President.
We're investigating, guys. Hell yeah. We're gonna get some answers. Hell yeah. Who all is hyped for that? Don't we already know that the US did it? I believe that's what people currently think, yeah. According to that, I think the New York Times put an article out on it. God damn it. I heard the school got struck multiple times. Yeah, but I think it was just two different strikes. I don't think they were like they hit it once and then they saw the schoolgirls crawling out and they were like, get them again. Israel ordered 12K more for the military, probably for Lebanon. Ordered 12K more what? Missiles? Tommies? Sorry. The fuck does this even go? I just want some rusted gears. Oh. Hotchviewer gets him to admit that he doesn't think it's that bad.
Static leader.
Didn't we already go over this? Or he doesn't think it's as bad as I think it is?
Okay. All right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, man. You with me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say thanks for having me on, and thanks for all the content over the last, 2 decades now. I hope you appreciate that you gave a lot of people a little bit of solace over the years, and you keep that with you and think about it sometimes.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that.
Me too, man.
Nice to hear.
Yeah. So, not a high temperature call-in, but just kind of gonna walk through some stuff that I think that you might be interested in. Can you pull up the 14th Amendment?
Uh-oh.
Sure can.
And I'm not looking at the stream. If you could just tell me, like, when you got it up. And the Cornell Law School version is nice because all the sections are presented together. Sometimes you gotta, like, click section by section, which will make this slightly more annoying.
Okay. All right, there it is.
Cool. And if you could just, like, read section 3.
No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of the president and vice president, or hold any office civil or military under the United States or under any state who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability.
And can you look at section 5? That one's only one sentence.
The Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation provisions of this article.
So, from that, you understand that the Constitution forbids insurrectionists from holding any office?
Correct.
Okay. And then I'm going to ask you to pull up one more thing just to ground this out to show that it's not some sort of wacky theory that I'm putting forth. If you just like Google Trump v. Anderson.pdf and open the...
I think what you're getting at is that the Supreme Court said that the Congress needs to decide if someone is an insurrectionist, right?
The Supreme Court said that the Congress has to decide. The Supreme Court controversially cited a then Supreme Court justice that was riding circuit, which just means that he wasn't issuing an opinion as a Supreme Court justice, who said that the Congress has to do something for the 14th Amendment to take effect. The Supreme Court makes very clear, which is what I wanted to show you in just 2 paragraphs of that opinion. It's, I think, pages 4 through 5. Give me
the cliff notes.
Yeah, so the Supreme Court makes very clear that it's the Congress's power to prescribe, I'm going to quote, to prescribe how those determinations should be made with respect to disqualification under Article 3 of the 14th Amendment. And Section 5 provides them that power. They decided, without really having to, that it's Congress's exclusive power to do that job. And the addition beyond what the Supreme Court said in this case, citing back to the Reconstruction period, is that there actually was a law in the books, obviously, during the Reconstruction period that barred a bunch of insurrectionists from taking office.
That's right.
And the mechanism in place in that legislation was extremely aggressive, like far more aggressive than what, I mean, I don't know what you refer to when you say like Nuremberg trial. I don't know if you're really referring to people being put on trial and sentenced to death, but the mechanism under the 1870 Enforcement Act, it's sometimes referred to as, I think, the Ku Klux Klan Act, it mandated that the district attorney for the state in which one of these insurrectionists would be holding office in, or is holding office in, it mandated them to go to the district court, file what was called a writ quo warranto, and that actually put the burden on the official to prove that they weren't an insurrectionist. And if they didn't respond or didn't meet that burden, they would be removed from office, or they would be disallowed from taking office. And what I'm getting at is all that requires is a majority of the House, a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate, or abolishing the filibuster. It seems like you're okay with abolishing the filibuster. I'm just pointing out that there's a very clear set of steps to go really...
Okay, and then what is the application that you're proposing here? Is it just Trump, or is it all Republicans? Is it the whole cabinet?
Well, it would be anybody that engaged in the insurrection, which several state courts have already determined that Trump engaged in insurrection. It was the Colorado trial court that said that he engaged in insurrection, but technically Colorado lacked the power to remove him from the ballot. Then the Supreme Court said he not only engaged in insurrection, but Colorado could remove him from the ballot. What I asked you to look at was the Supreme Court case that said that states cannot remove insurrectionists from the ballot because it's, the exclusive power of Congress to promulgate this legislation, which we just went through. I actually think that that's wrong. It doesn't matter. The point is, even based on what the Supreme Court said, it's anyone that engaged in insurrection or in that insurrection, the 2021 insurrection, or gave aid or comfort to those that engaged in insurrection. There are even cases, I don't think they were litigated to conclusion, but there was one case of a judge in a state who I think fought on the side of the Union Army, but he had a writ quo warranto put out for him, and then I think he got off because there was like a forgiveness legislation that passed. But anyways, it's really had a far-reaching application. What I'm getting at is, I think you could even make a very strong case that all of the people that passed these government loyalty tests that required them to attest to the false results in the 2020 election might fall under Section 3 as having given aid or comfort, or any of the congressional representatives that have lied
This guy's a yapper.
Lied on the floor about the results of the 2020 election.
Well, okay, all right. So President Newsom is sworn in, and he has majorities in Congress. What do you think should happen?
Well, one thing that I think is nice about this is, and I also think it's additive to the conversations that you've been having, which I think we're not super grounded, but get at something interesting. Anyways, one thing that's nice about what I'm talking about is I'm not talking about like President Newsom, although, you know, there would need to be a Democratic president for this to get through. But it's really, this is about Congress reasserting itself as the most powerful branch, which I think, you know, everybody kind of agrees is the design of the system.
Ryan Getty agrees.
It's Congress's job to do this. So, you know, Gavin Newsom could say whatever, you can have some charismatic guy push this forward and say this is the way that it should be made out. But there are lots of ways that Congress could do this. In 2022, there was a House bill that actually tried to do this through having, I think it was, I don't remember the exact mechanism, but it was referrals to 3 judge district court panels that would adjudicate these disputes. But we have the names of these people. We know who they are.
Saying? What do you need? What's up, buddy?
Raider hatch. Do you have a Raider hatch?
Oh, nope. I'm sorry. I just spawned in.
Oh, okay. You got my phone.
Was this guy begging me for a hatch key?
And there's lots of mechanisms for effectuating this. It's Congress's job to determine how that gets done. And I don't really think at this point, if you look at the case, Trump v. Anderson, despite the fact that there's language in that case where the court tries to save itself by saying, obviously this is subject to judicial review, I don't think that the court can really stop Congress from effectuating the 14th Amendment after what they've written there. Because if they were to, in a way that protected insurrectionists, they would be engaging in giving aid or comfort to insurrectionists, and they'd be mooted. Like, I think they kind of pretzeled themselves. And that's a defensible, liberal way to set the right incentives. There's historical precedent for it. And it's like totally, clearly within the language of the 14th Amendment, the language of recent Supreme Court cases, not something pie in the sky. That was a lot of rambling, but I think you got the idea.
Yeah, I do. I guess I would say that I would never tell you that I would never sign on to something like this, but I guess the concerns that pop into my head right away as you're talking is
how much of a yap fest it is.
I don't think that currently, I think it's the case. I don't think that the public would be poised to be on board for something like this. And whatever action we take to address this administration's criminality and whatever reforms we pursue through policy to prevent these kinds of things from happening in the future or make it more difficult in the future, I do think that you always do need to consider the larger consequences of what you do. And if what you do has significant potential to sway the public away from you and then towards supporting Republicans, if there's a perception of overreach, if there's a perception of tyranny, then you do run the risk of making the Republican Party more sympathetic, and
tyranny.
That would ultimately result in losing power and giving them power again. And so it's possible that Donald Trump, he falls out of favor so much with the public that they would be open to something like this. It sounds a bit lofty to me right now. It's hard to imagine this happening. I think in the long term, or I guess rather in the short term, the Democrats are just much, much, much better off focusing on using the power that the voters give them to deliver an agenda that actually makes an impact on their lives. I think if you ask most voters, do you want this American Nuremberg 2.0 that's within a liberal framework? I'm not saying that it's illiberal Or do you want the Democrats to focus on, making their lives better, making their paychecks go further? Probably like 80% of Americans are going to pick the latter, I would assume.
I 100% agree with you that in terms of winning elections, which is definitely the most important thing in 2026 and then in 2028, like it's the kitchen table issues that should be emphasized, and I don't think that people have the stomach for
the liberal side. So the Supreme Court technically kneecapped us and our ability to use Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to prevent people that had engaged in insurrection from holding office. But they did still say that if Congress wanted to enforce Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, Congress would be able to do that. Although I'm not really sure if it would be politically effective or worthwhile for Congress to execute the power that the Supreme Court already kind of sort of arbitrarily limited, but like maybe in the future we could do that. That's the liberal side. Republican side, Donald Trump, 2016, for literally no reason, lock her up. I'm running on lock her up. For what? What crimes did she ever commit? I don't know. Lock her up. Okay. Why? I don't know. Lock her up. Okay. All right. Fine. Sure. Based. All right.
For retribution like this right now, I will say that the same sorts of issues exist post Civil War and Reconstruction, obviously, and I think that they probably existed to a more extreme extent than they would exist today. And there's Congress determines the extent to which this would be applied. So how extreme it goes or not extreme it goes would be the discretion of Congress. So there's more and less drastic ways that this could be taken into effect. They could take a maximalist approach to Section 3, which I actually think that they're somewhat in duty to effectuate Section 3 because it is a part of the Constitution that the Supreme Court has basically said is but for one criminal statute moot right now. But anyways, they could say basically all of these people are out, a bunch of senators are out, a bunch of House of Reps members are out, a bunch of people that are in the bureaucracy are out all at once, really fast, and that would be super extreme. And they could say it's worth it because then we're going to do all of this other extreme stuff, and then in 20 years maybe we're going to have some sort of amnesty like in the Civil War. Or they could just say like the people that most egregiously participated in the insurrection, maybe that's Donald Trump himself, maybe that's the people that engaged in terrorism on January 6, 2021, but are now ICE agents. Maybe it's people that supported those folks in other ways. Maybe it's just that. It's not an all or nothing proposition. And generally, like, I fully agree with you that the most important thing, are the elections, and I agree with your approach to that, and I appreciate that you're trying to reel a bunch of people in, but I want to just clarify that there's nothing drastically illiberal about seeking, I guess you could call it, retribution for these wrongs. I mean, it's what the founders conceptualized, and then post-Civil War, the Reconstruction amendments conceptualized. That's why it's there.
I understand that. I understand that, and I think these kinds of measures make a lot more sense in the immediate post-Civil War era. And as bad as what Trump did, and that was very, very bad, I do sympathize with people who make arguments that it was like worse than 9/11, literally. I think that if you applied it today, in the way that you're suggesting, then I imagine, I imagine anything spanning from a new super energized crop of Republican politicians run for seats all over the country, just absolutely fucking demolish the Democratic Party, and then we're back at square one, except maybe this time they have big enough majorities to amend the Constitution. I imagine anything from that part of the spectrum all the way to our red states now drafting new articles of secession. I mean, these are the kinds of things that I think would be in the spectrum of possibility. And it's difficult for me to squint my eyes and even even
Arrested gears ever be in these
even
things?
barely see that this would be something that would like prevent the Republicans from doing the kind of bad things that I think you want to address with this kind of action. But if your larger point was that there is a liberal kind of framework to accomplish the things that Destiny and DGG are asking for, then I do grant you and accept that what you're proposing here does appear to be a liberal remedy that gets at sort of what they're asking for. And so,
I don't think we have much disagreement at all. I would say I would be more concerned about like secession and violence than some sort of like political return, because the people that would be aggressively trying to retake political power are presumably going to be ineligible to take office, because you would think that the set of those people is going to be close to coextensive with the set of people that deny the results of the 2020 election. But yeah, I think we're on all fours, unless there's something you want to ask or anything else. I don't want to eat up the rest of your stream, and I appreciate you having me on.
No, I mean, I appreciate you. I didn't know about this. I didn't know about like the particular sections of the Constitution, but I did know that that's what the Supreme Court had ruled in terms of like the Congress's role in determining whether or not someone has done an insurrection. And no, I don't think I have any questions, but I mean, I just want to close it out by saying that, again, I do want to stress there is a possible universe where this could be on the table and it would be politically beneficial. Like there is a threshold that Donald Trump could cross that would be even 10 times worse than what we're having right now. Like he could get caught just like dead to rights, like they got him on camera giving our nuclear codes to Putin or something like that. And if something like that were to occur in this country,
I mean, the documents at Mar-a-Lago were related to nuclear, like our energy department stuff. But I mean, I guess we need to have him like literally on video giving them to the enemy of the United States, I guess. Okay.
And his approval dropped down like below like 20 points. Well, then all of a sudden your remedy here doesn't even seem that politically unviable. But I do think we have a little ways to go before we get there. You know, like if we're in a country now that reelected him after January 6th, that tells me that it would have to probably get really bad, like much, much, much worse than January 6th. Maybe January 6th on a much bigger scale before the public would be warm to something like this.
Yeah, and I watched that conversation that you had with Destiny after I tried to get into your room yesterday, and I do think he really poorly represented the position. I think that the way that he was talking really does amp people up in a counterproductive way. I think some of the...
Don't be counterproductive, guys. You have to treat MAGA, the people who are... I won't even say it. Be nice, guys. Okay.
The concrete examples that he was giving were poor, but if I understood him correctly, I think the debate that he was trying to have with you was whether we are far enough to call for something like what I laid out.
Yeah.
Not
true.
Whether
that was the point.
Whatever crazy thing he was yelling about was the correct way to go about it. I think
literally
it was more,
didn't even do that, but
you know,
he got it.
Do
He
we
got
need
there eventually.
to do something aggressive to change the incentives on a go-forward basis? Not like, do we abandon law and order? Do we abandon the Constitution? Do we abandon liberalism for the purpose of retribution? I don't think that's really where he was going. It sounds like that's where a lot of the people that have jumped on today are going. And then I guess one last thing is what's, I think, even more instructive than the Supreme Court case and the language of the 14th Amendment itself is Section 14 of the Enforcement Act of 1870, which shows that the 14th Amendment, in effect, in the Reconstruction period, followed an extreme procedure. I think far more extreme than actually having normal conventional trials, because again, it put the burden on the people that were just accused of being insurrectionists to establish that they were not, and if they failed, then they were axed. So just want to point out that you know our liberal system has some pretty sharp teeth, and it's not like a totally neutered, you know, thing without any self-defense. self-defenses. But yeah, I appreciate your time much, and thanks for all that you've done and all I'm sure you'll continue to do.
Well, I mean, you seem like a smart individual, so I want to pick your brain on something about the debate. Are you out of here, or do you have a time constraint?
I'm with you if you want me. I just don't want to,
No, I mean,
ruin the stream. Or
I find you to be an impressive young man, so I just wanted to get your sense about the part of the debate that I had with Destiny that I found the most frustrating is a debate that I've actually had like 1,000 times with people in my chat. And what I run into a lot is the idea that we should be open to, like most things at this point, even illiberal things. And the logic that Destiny used and that I've heard 1,000 times from other people is, well, Trump just does whatever he wants. So it's not really an issue. You don't need to worry about congressional majorities if you're President Newsom, and you don't need to worry about the courts if you already preordain what you want to do and then just do it. And, again, they reinforce the logic with, well, that's what Trump is doing. I find this to be very frustrating because as much as Trump is being lawless, and I'm not saying he's not, I think he has operated outside of the boundaries of the law and the Constitution on a number of issues. All that is true. And at the same time, he's actually not all powerful. He can't just do the things that people are proposing that Newsom do. He can't, for example, pretextualize, I don't know what the language there was, but like pretextualize a crime and then just, worry about the details later, but just like put people in jail and then just like get them on some little thing. Well, Trump is
I just want to, it depends who you're talking about. If you're a random person on the street, he can do that to you. It's happened to people, which I'm sure you're familiar with. If you're Mark Kelly, then it's not going to happen to you. But if you're a guy that doesn't present as a definitive founding stock person, then it can't happen to you.
I mean, even Sandwich Guy got acquitted, right? Like, they had him dead to rights on camera, just hucking a fucking sandwich full strength at a ICE agent that was 3 feet in front of him, and he got fucking acquitted because the federal government went too far, and the jury were like, this is crazy that you're charging him with like maximum felonies here.
I don't want to, I mean, this is beside the point that I think you're trying to get at, but like, there have been horrible abuses by the administration that have resulted in innocent people dying on the street in the cold because they were wrongfully detained, ordered released, and then released in a T-shirt. I think a blind guy was released in a T-shirt in the middle of winter and then died.
Yeah.
So I know you're familiar with that, and I'm not trying to like morally grandstand or anything like that. I'm just pointing out that. Any president and every president oversees an executive that has tremendous powers that really hurts people. Yet even presidents that I would say did a good job. In this case, I think more people have been hurt than is conventional or like what we would consider like normative for an administration to do.
I obviously take your point, and the federal government is very, very big, and the agencies are very, very big, and we have a lot of federal law enforcement officers. So even under good presidents, we've had Americans who have had their rights violated, right? Probably without proper satisfaction in the court to remedy that situation. But Trump obviously is very uniquely, I think, corrupt and is violating rights to a uniquely extreme degree. However, the point still remains that when we say, well, Newsom, him being able to add Supreme Court justices, that's just a matter of like will, And when I was trying to push back in the argument with Destiny, when I was saying, well, he can't really do that, that simply can he? I mean, he's going to need the Congress to do something like that. He just kept insisting that, well, if you just have a president that is willing to assert their authority in the same way that Trump is now, there is really no limit to what you can do, There are much, much less limitations than maybe we think now. I think I got him to concede that it's much more likely that you could stack the court with 2 justices instead of 13 or something. But I think that's a fundamental misinterpretation of the current moment. I think it is massively overstating Trump's abilities. Like, he actually does need Congress to do a lot of things. He actually does need the courts to be able to sign off on the things that he does. The tariffs were a good example of this. The court struck down his ability to invoke that law and do these unilateral tariffs. And he did reimpose tariffs, but they're much, much more limited in scope, and they have a time limit on them. He didn't technically violate that Supreme Court order. And that's kind of normal for presidents to do that, to have something struck down and then they use a different kind of legal rationale. I guess I'm just curious as to your thoughts of like, why do people think that Donald Trump can just bypass Congress and the courts on literally everything when he's very clearly constrained in a way that the future Democratic presidents will be similarly constrained.
I mean, there's a lot in what you say that I agree with. I don't think I agree all the way. I think if you look, I think that people, educated people, like legal scholars, I think some of them have been very surprised at how unconstrained Trump has been. I think that tariffs, as an example, the tariffs that were levied, the taxes that were paid, the fact that that happened the way that it did happen did surprise a lot of people. I take your point that like he ultimately didn't disobey this. Well, he hasn't yet by the letter disobeyed the Supreme Court on the tariff decision. I don't really know exactly what you're asked. Like, why do people think that he can just do whatever he wants? Well, he's done a bunch of illegal.
More in the context of like when people propose what they want to see happen when the next Democratic president comes in with a trifecta. It's more about addressing that, because there seem to be destiny, and a lot of people in this community seem to think that Newsom can kind of do anything he wants. Just like and again, the rationale they use is, well, Trump is doing anything he wants. And so
yeah, I think this is a more interesting path to go down. And what I would say is that if this administration functioned more competently, then they would have been able to get a lot more of their agenda done. Similarly, I think a lot of extreme things, that maybe even things that would be more extreme than what I would like to see, that a left-wing president would want to do, I think they could accomplish more if they did it in a more institutional fashion than the way that Trump has like proceeded. So I think maybe that's a better angle to go about it. For example, you could get out all these people under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment with a bare majority in both houses. You could do that. I'm not saying that there's the political will to do that or that that's the prudent thing to do. So you could do that, and that's totally would be within the system. You could add Washington, D.C. as a state. You could add Puerto Rico as a state. It's 4 more senators. That goes a very long way. And you could pack the court, similarly. I'm not saying that should be done, but if you do all of those things, you get a shitload done. I mean, if you look at FDR was able to get a ton done just by threatening to be super aggressive. So yeah, maybe that's, I don't know if that was like perfectly responsive to what you were asking.
These are the things that I've been suggesting, though. I mean, we're like working within the boundaries of the system in ways that don't further erode the kind of things that Trump is doing. Like that I see as the biggest threat to the kind of proposals that I'm hearing from radicalized liberals. They want to, in a sense, replicate Trump to a certain degree. And that necessarily means, in many of these instances, further eroding the institutions and norms and guardrails that are in place to protect the country against like unchecked authority. And the more you do that, the more you choose to stay on that merry-go-round, the closer we get to just like full-on civil war. I mean, people don't like me talking about that because they think that I'm making it sound extreme when it doesn't need to be. But that is like really what we're talking about. Like the Constitution and the system itself is designed in part to incentivize consensus and de-incentivize like violent conflict to settle political disputes. And if there's a two-party system and one party is really trying to chip away at those norms and laws and the Constitution, you do need the other party to be fighting for that system, which sounds like fully cucked, I think, to a lot of people, but it's just true. Like there has to be one party that are going to be the quote-unquote kind of grown-ups. And to quote Obama in his interview with Brian Tyler Cohen, that doesn't mean that you like let them punk you, like that doesn't mean if Texas tries to yoink 5 seats from the House of Representatives that California doesn't respond in kind. There's all kinds of ways that you can fight MAGA and Trump, using these institutions and using the strength and resilience of the system and the safeguards of the system to check the president, check the Republican Party. But
I wonder how he would feel if the Supreme Court would have blocked California's redistricting and allowed Texas's.
As soon as you start talking about like quote being brave and quote like bending the law and quote getting creative, I wouldn't necessarily say no to every single one of these things. Like I might consider like a president like secretly breaking the law if they knew that they couldn't get caught. Like I don't know. But as soon as you start entertaining these things kind of out in the open, and I just don't understand where the confidence comes from, where they think that if we just do these fishing expeditions and do mass incarcerations and disenfranchise like every current sitting member of the Republican Party, I think in their minds they.
What'd that guy say? I heard this guy say something to me. Do you think he's got a gear? I can't kill him. That one guy killed me, though. Should I kill this guy? Yes or no? Whoever says yes or no first is what I do. Tinted said yes. You're disgusting. You're a disgusting piece of shit. Nice, and he's got a big-ass shotgun.
How could you, man? How could you?
I'm sorry, I'm a piece of shit. I won't. Go ahead, you can leave. I'm sorry. I got greedy.
Oh, thank you.
Have fun, good luck.
Thank you.
That guy sounds like a fellow millennial.
Think, okay, well, MAGA will just be crushed and it'll just be this dead movement, but I could see that, profoundly emboldening and empowering the MAGA movement in this country to escalate even further, like well beyond January 6th and well beyond the occasional acts of political violence like in Minnesota and the plot to kidnap Whitmer. And I could see it just getting so much worse than that if you operate outside of the law or outside of the Constitution to punish Trump and Republicans.
Yeah.
No, we shot, but I downed him, but then we left. We're friends. We were just chilling. That sounded so fucking guilty.
As a matter of like functionally how you should go about getting things accomplished, I don't think that you need to bend the law or break the law. Our system is powerful. It's resilient. There's a lot that can be done within it. There's a separate question about how like political groups should behave to energize people, and I have no clue. Obviously, a lot of the craziness has helped energize the base of the Republicans. I don't know if the same.
And the Democrats, though.
Just one more rusted gear, please,
the Republican craziness has pissed off Democrats and got them to the ballot box.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing literal historic turnout in Texas right now.
Yeah, I think the pundits have a really bad track record of like forecasting. What will happen if this occurs. I don't know how to predict any of that. Kind of like getting back into something more substantive. Although in that conversation, I think Destiny really poorly represented his case, and I think that resulted in a lot of the weirder calls that you had today. I'm not so sure if he embraces any of the points that you find uncomfortable. I think the real rub is that he would say, like, yes, of course, we should take all of the risks associated with aggressively pursuing Article 3 of the 14th Amendment, and we should take all of these people out. We should add DC and Puerto Rico as a state. We should do all of this because things have gotten that bad. And I think you and him just kind of disagree as a factual matter as to, like, how bad things have gotten and how far we should push back. I don't think that he would prefer to do things in a law-breaking fashion. I think that maybe he or his audience members might think that that's, like, necessary at this point. Definitely his audience members think that.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think that's just mistaken. But yeah,
it's hard because I think it is in a superficial sense. I don't know if easy is the word, but like easy. I think in a superficial way, it's easier to make the case that the wheels have already come off because Trump is so bad and there's just so many insane things that he is doing that you could point to try to make that case. But I don't look at it in terms of what we used to be as a country and as a system, 20 years ago compared to now. Like after Trump won 2 elections, I'm comparing us now to like the worst examples throughout history of countries becoming failed states and the government completely collapsing and the military taking over, some tyrant taking over. And when you compare it to that, I think you arrive at the conclusion that I've arrived at, which is that we're in a period of significant civil unrest and dysfunction and significant erosions of these norms and institutions and laws and the liberal framework. But we still have, I would say, quite a bit to go before we're in the territory that would justify the kind of actions that I've been hearing from them. I think they're jumping the gun, and it's not even that they're wrong necessarily. I think like if everybody in the country was informed properly, then I think the urgency of this moment would be even more intense from political opposition like the Democrats and the voters that are currently showing up and like voting en masse to take power from Republicans. I think you would have a significant percentage of the country asking for the kind of thing that you propose, like the Congress initiating these proceedings along the Fourth Amendment. But we don't live in that kind of country, and so it is difficult to get people to pay attention and care about these things. It is difficult to explain a lot of the things that Trump is doing because it's just you have to get into these really wonky details. And there's also a problem where a lot of people in the country seem to lack really basic knowledge of just like how the government works and how do you pass a bill and what is the filibuster, and all these things combined I think make it really difficult to get people to care about things that are happening right now. And so I guess the difference between me and them, and then I'll finish up, is like I can see I think in my opinion I have a realistic sense of that, of like what I just said about how the people are in this country, how many people are actually paying attention to this extent. And recognizing that, I think the best option that we have in front of us, in fact the only option, is to just win elections and do good things with the power that we have, and do not overreach, do not make a martyr out of the Republican Party, do not empower them by making them more sympathetic, by don't make that mistake. I think a lot of Republicans want us to make that mistake, but
yeah, I mean there's a lot in that response. I mean, one of the things that you were talking about is the lack of education in the electorate. I think that might actually be an argument in favor of the kind of crude, impractical policy prescriptions from like media pundits. I think that is part of the reason why the conservative media ecosystem attracts so many people. And if you're on Twitter, there's lots of like really fun stuff that you get to enjoy if you're part of that community, just because you're kind of ignorant, and there's like a lot of red meat there. So to the extent that you think that the problems are caused by people being super uneducated, then I don't know, in terms of like what exists in the media, I don't know whether you should be so opposed to people saying extreme, unrealistic things to get people excited to like vote in an election. I think one point that you make that's really strong and is scary is that what happens if we do win in 2026 and then win in 2028, and then the Democratic Party doesn't have the stomach to do any of this whatsoever? Does that put us in a worse position on a go-forward basis than if we like didn't throw out as much of this red meat? I think that's something to be concerned with.
Why though? The Republican Party makes promises every single election cycle and fails to deliver over and over and over and over and over again. It feels like it doesn't hurt them. How many times have I heard Republicans talk about the economy and the deficit, and they fucking suck ass at both for decades, for the entirety of my currently existing life? How many times have I heard Republicans talk about the deficit, the budget deficit, the debt? We got to get a handle on this debt. The deficit, the debt is out of control. Even you fucking retards, we're making excuses for why Donald Trump's trying to do this to devalue the USD so that he can borrow a bunch of shit from the Treasury at a reduced interest rate and pay down the debt. Well, no, he's not. These guys, he's fucking retarded. Why are you trying to explain? Why are you trying to explain what a fucking retard is trying to do? It's like pretending like a tree is fucking painting pictures with its leaves as it blows in the wind. You're just trying to predict that Trump is doing some kind of actually 5 million IQ thing. He's just a fucking retard. But for some reason, it never hurts them. It's kind of weird how that works. As the president of No New Wars gets us into our second military engagement with Iran in just as many years. Feels amazing.
I don't know if it's straightforwardly like inappropriate for people in the media to do this, whatever, entertainment stuff that gets people riled up, because unfortunately it just seems like kind of where we're at. I don't know.
Depends on what's motivating you, because I think there are some left-wing commentators that very deliberately present the most provocative kind of explanation for things because they know that it gets them clicks. I would say that Destiny has been provocative lately in ways that I disagree with, obviously, but I don't think he's doing it out of some profit motive. I think he is genuinely radicalized.
Thank you.
And so, you know,
I am.
I don't know. Maybe there's a place for people like Destiny, and maybe there's a place for an argument in favor of that kind of radicalization if it leads to more engagement at the voting booth. But I do worry about, like, I do think it's very possible that Democrats win a trifecta in 2028, and, you know, 4 years later it's a Republican, and a Republican trifecta for whatever reason. And I don't want certainly anybody in my audience to reach that moment and just throw their hands up and be like, we can't win. I don't have the energy to keep going back and forth. And I'm trying to get people to approach politics differently and approach a long-term commitment to political engagement. And I just worry that that kind of black pill will just lead to people just throwing their hands up and being like, okay, fuck it, the fascist won.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. One more point, and then I'm gonna jump. Is I don't think that you, and based on just that one conversation, I could be wrong, because maybe he said in other conversations things that are much more extreme and will just show that I'm incorrect about this. But based on that conversation, he kept making some sort of refrain about it doesn't matter how you would accomplish any of this. It's just, do you think that we need to do it or something like that? My takeaway from that is, like, he has the same method preference as you. I think that he would prefer this 14th Amendment method to President Gavin Newsom just ordering officers to round up all of the Republicans, Saddam Hussein style. I think he would prefer this 14th Amendment approach.
Yeah, I agree I agree there.
Yeah, I think that if you were dropped...
I think I got an email about this, and it's true too. I don't think... I might have even said this to Hutch, actually. Fuck the emailer. You gotta need your email. I don't think people really appreciate how much you need somebody. Like, I've used this fucking Monopoly example on the stabbing somebody so many times. I don't think people really appreciate that you need people to be adhering to the law in good faith in order for the law to work. This is why I get so mad about, like, the reform. We need reforms and reforms. It's like, it doesn't really matter. If a person has decided that they are not going to engage in good faith with your system, then you can reform whatever the fuck you want. Like, you don't have, like, a... You don't have a player. You motherfucker. You fucker. You really can do anything you want legally if you're willing to play with, like, make stupid interpretations of words and phrases. Like, you can basically do whatever the fuck you want. But we shouldn't, because, like, we should have a mutual understanding of, like, what it means to not be retarded. But if they don't want to have that understanding, then we don't have to have that understanding.
In, like, a camp, a formerly USA-supported camp where a bunch of people are dying for no reason, you would come back and...
Yeah, true. I think I might have even said that exasperatedly to Hutch last time. Like, there's a reason why we have judges and stuff. Judges that don't just make decisions on, you know, guilty or not guilty, but judges who interpret the law for us, right? It's not just a simple algorithmic input-output and then here you go. It's like, well, I don't even know. What does it even mean to say this person broke the law? What does it even mean? Like, we have to have these people interpreting things for us.
Your methodological preference wouldn't change, but I think that you would be kind of where he's at in terms of how aggressive we should be with, you know, enforcing the mechanisms that we have in our system. I'm not saying that to suggest that you're ignorant or something like that. It might be the case that would just bias you way too far for what would be prudent in the long term. I'm just suggesting that you probably would change your viewpoint a little bit if you saw, like, the extent of the carnage firsthand. So yeah, I think it's really more of like a factual dispute about like how far along we've gone between the two of you. And I don't know. It was not pleasant to hear a lot of the conversations that you had today. I thought they were totally unwed from reality in the sort of verbiage that you were using. But I appreciate what you're doing, man. Thanks for all the content over the years, even just the fun stuff from back in the day. And yeah, I hope you know that you've made like a small but big impact in many, many people's lives, and it means something. So I hope you can take something from that.
Thank you for saying that. I really do appreciate that. It's hard to take in sometimes, but thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, have a good one, buddy. I appreciate you.
Enjoy the weekend. Bye-bye.
Confiscation room.
Esme sometimes will kindly remind me of like she feels the emails, and so she'll sometimes remind me that people will reach out and say really nice things about how I said something that they felt was valuable, or I just did something for them in their lives, and like for whatever reason I have a hard time accepting that. I don't know what that is. Talk to my therapist about that and unpack that.
I'm the
I don't know why that is. I have a hard time with that.
Why any of you are happy.
Bismack with the tier 1 membership, Sergeant Duck Duck with the tier 1 membership, Free Hops with 2 months.
Oh, that's how it
in what
should
way
be.
do you embody your optimism that you don't see in other people? If it's staying engaged, do you stay engaged outside of streams and social media? Well, that's a good question. I make a pretty concerted effort to like do things that bring me joy and happiness. Like I'm making more time to do those things in the second term than I was in the first term. Like learning marksmanship and how to shoot accurately is like really rewarding and fun and exciting and interesting for me. And so I make time for that. I make time for like games that I really like. And then also, I have like family members who I've had really intense political disagreements with in the past. And I'm taking a new kind of strategy in the second Trump term where now I'm looking at it like an act of defiance. Like I feel like I'm contributing in my own way to Donald Trump not winning by not letting political disagreements destroy a relationship. So I feel like it's like defiant. I feel like I'm saying like, fuck you. Like you're not gonna, like that fucking piece of shit, that pathetic narcissist.
Wow.
Is not gonna win by like breaking families up. Do you consider Destiny an ally? I mean, broadly, I think like politically we're on a very, 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 very similar wavelength, and we have been, I would say, for years.
Absolutely not. I'm on the pre-bald team, not the post-bald team.
I do hope that
Me and Hassan are co-streaming tomorrow, and we're gonna spend the whole time doxing Loner Box and Hutch. I'm just kidding. Okay. This is my last run. Wish me luck. Why do you hate me? Because I do. I'm just kidding. I don't hate you, babe. I clicked on your live stream in the middle of the conversation with Destiny and Hutch. Wow. What's the live stream for that? Wouldn't that be a VOD? Because that's not happening right now? Unless there's a clone of me somewhere? Why have liberal content creators given about cultural influence Destiny? It's all right versus left online. I don't know. Like I said, I feel like there's just not good center-left coordinated representation. It's all like the cringy far-left shit, or just all of your right-leaning stuff. Oh, that bag was empty. AF.